This is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Rosslager.
Shield wall!
All of my life, and all of your lives, have come to this point. There is nowhere else to be but here.
No, I always knew I would love these Northmen.
This is Vikcast with Clive Standen and Amy Bailey.
And as the King of Wessex and King of Bretwalda, all of England, I order you to listen to Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
The podcast direct from Valhalla.
Hi everyone, I'm George Blagden and I play Athelstan on Vikings, and you should tune into this incredible podcast, Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
This is Vikcast.
Hello, I am Alyssa Sutherland, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Hi there, this is Kevin Durand. This is Harbor the Wanderer. You're listening to Vikecast. This is a Viking thing.
Hey guys, this is Alexander Ludwig here, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Hi, this is Clive Standen.
And this is Amy Bailey, and you're listening to Vikcast. It's a Viking thing. And we've got somebody pretty cool on our show today. Who is it, Clivester?
He is known as Bjorn Ironside, the one, the only, my son, Alexander Ludwig.
What's up? Hey guys. So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I miss you, kiddo.
Miss you too. It's funny. I like whenever I get to see the cast again, I'm reminded of like just how freaking special our show was and how rare it is to have the kind of family we did, you know? So it's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's been like so joyful for Clive and me to be able to go through our friends one at a time, because life gets so busy, and you know, all of us are like, yeah, we miss you, FaceTime sometime, and we never do. So this is like an enforced FaceTime, which is really nice.
It's actually genius. It's such a good way to like get to catch up with people and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it started over lockdown as well. When we were kind of all locked in our houses, Amy and I got together and we were like, just to start this. And it was great. It was a great opportunity to get everyone together, and we were stuck at home and just catch up. And now we're in the new year and we're slowly starting to come out, you know, and see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just brilliant now that we can actually really kind of expand Vikcast and get everybody on.
Yeah, you know, Travis and I were talking about starting one, but nobody could ever understand what he was saying.
I know Clive and I are being strategic about how our interview is going to go down.
I remember, actually, you just reminded me. I remember a Comic-Con San Diego when you, I, and Catherine and Travis had to do a radio interview, and Travis was not making any sense at all, and you actually came on and started doing an impression of Travis, and no one could tell. You're like, hey, this is Travis, and you're just answering all his questions.
Hey, Ludwig, you can come be our translator. When we do Travis, you can be our translator.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I totally forgot about that.
So good. Do you know what? This is a perfect segue into the questions that I have prepared. I haven't prepared a lot of stuff actually, because you know, I just figured we'd shoot the shit and that would be the best. But one thing I was going to ask you about, you spent 6 years on the show? Is it 6 years?
Yeah, just about.
6 years of your life. Now, I remember the moment I met you, Alex. You were probably 10 years old or something. How old do you know?
Certainly felt that.
Yeah. You were it was like meeting a 6'3" golden retriever. I walked out of the studios and you were out there with Gaia Vice, and I was just kind of meeting everybody, and you're like, hey, like your energy was like, boom, like this just like happy, awesome, very like ebullient person. And it was cool, like over the years watching you grow up as a person, but then watching your character grow up and watching you kind of, speaking of impersonating Travis, taking on mannerisms of him a little bit. And it was like, how did you have a pre-plan, or did you just grow into that preparation of Bjorn aging?
It's so like so weird to say, because like if knowing the success of the show now and how important it is to my life, like not even including the friendships and basically the family we had, like the idea that I would even say no to this show now would be insane. But when I was first signing on to the show, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I got to do this show. It was, 6 years ago, or even longer now. It was just like the beginning of the golden age of television. And I had just come off of I think The Hunger Games, but then it was Lone Survivor, which was my other kind of big film. And things seemed to be really picking up steam in the film world. And there was a serious conversation when they came to us. Like, I was like, do I want to be a part of a show on the History Channel? Like, right? Who the hell watches the History Channel unless you're watching World War II documentaries? And
all they'd done before was the Bible. That was all they'd done, right? They'd just done one limited.
And they did. And the other thing they had was Hatfields and McCoys, which I loved, but it was a mini series. And I was just like, do I really want to commit 6 years of my life to a show? Like, you hear horror stories of people who are attached to shows that they just hate. And that was what I was so scared of. So we'd originally said no. And then they came back and we'd said no again. And then they came back and we're like, well, you got to pay us. And they were like, well, we're not going to pay you at all, but you should really do this show.
What do you mean?
You know how it works, like with TV quotes, and film quotes, or whatever. Right. And I was just like, okay, I got to watch this, like the first season. I got to really do my due diligence. Like, no, don't just like throw this opportunity away. So I watched the first season, and I had talked to Michael a little bit and like Steve Stark about the trajectory of Bjorn Ironside and like how, we're going to take this kid from like a boy to a young man to a warrior to a father to a leader to a legend, and like that was to me like just such an appealing arc. And I was just like, how many actors ever get to show that kind of growth? And I called some of my friends, and randomly Vikings was already massive in Canada. So they were like, you have to do this show. Like, it's so cool. And I was like, yeah, like it is really cool. Like, I'm in love with this show. I think the actors are phenomenal. The writing is incredible, but like, who's going to watch it? And I kind of came to the terms with the fact that like, I was still very green, like in this industry. And like, I had a lot of learning to do still. And I should never say no to something that I believe in, regardless of what platform it's on. And it was the greatest decision I ever made in my life. Shortly after that, moved to Ireland in my early 20s and, met all you guys. And it will always be the greatest decision of my entire life. And for my career, simply because I grew so much as a human being and also an actor. And that, like, I felt like I really grew alongside my character, and like, that is like just such an incredible opportunity that I don't think a lot of people have, especially if you're a young guy in the industry. Like, I've been working since I was like 13. So to get to show that as I grew up is just a fucking dream. And I miss it like terribly. I really miss the people and I miss the show, and being on new shows. Like, it's been incredible to get to move on, but there's always going to be like, that was my college, that was my like time with everybody. And like, that will be one of my favorite times of my life. So, yeah.
Can you remember your first day on set?
Yes. Well, I remember my first day on set was before I met anybody. I was on with Ken Girardi and
the director. Yeah.
Yes, and they had this like there was this scene where they needed me galloping they needed me walking on a horse from one place to another, and I remember being like, "Fuck that!" Like, this is like there is no way I'm setting a precedent on this show where I'm like walking a horse. Like, there's no way I'm doing 6 years of this. Like, I grew up riding, so I just told our director, I was like, Ken, just shoot it and trust me. Like, I'll be okay. Just don't tell anybody. Okay. So I remember getting on the horse and just immediately Tony, our horse wrangler, freaked out. I just just whip. And like, for insurance, you're not allowed to do that. So they were like freaking out. And I think Tony realized quickly that, okay, this guy can actually ride a horse. So let's do it again. And that was kind of like my first experience. It was a hell of a first day. And then, shortly after that, I was in it. I was in it with Clive and Travis and Catherine, and
What was your first impression meeting Clive?
Clive was actually incredible. Clive is just, it's hysterical because out of everyone on the show, I think Clive is the person that when you meet him, he's so different than his character. Like his character is this like, your typical, if you think of a Viking, like you'd think of Rollo, right? But then you meet Clive and he's all of those things, but underneath it is like this gentle, loving, caring, amazing person who's like just so in love with the world. Like he's always inspired to show the history. He loved the battle.
Can you hear the women screaming in the
exactly
listenership?
Yeah.
Marry me.
Yeah.
Yes. Ladies, he is the perfect man.
He is, and it's funny. Like
looking for my gypsy queen.
Every single person who I introduce Clive to always says that to me. They're like, "Wow, like I did not expect Clive to be like that." And I was like, "I know, like he's such a good dude." And Travis, when I first met him, it was like hysterical. Like I mean. I'm just this like early 20-year-old dude. And I was just trying to I knew that we were going to have like this, big time, big, life together. And I was just like my girlfriend at the time was a model and she was like doing this like fashion show in Ireland.
I remember her.
I remember.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey man, like if you want, like, she's doing this like runway show. Like, if you want to come,
you invite him to a runway show.
And knowing Travis now, like, can you fucking imagine? And he just turns to me. He's like, couldn't think of anything worse, mate. And I was like, all right. This is and it's so funny because like, Travis is one of those guys who I always tell people when people will call me like, hey, like I'm about to work with Travis. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, man, like he's one of the hardest workers in the room. He loves his job and he's a heart of gold. And there's like an exterior that's hard to kind of break through the surface. But once you get to know him, Travis is one of my best friends and it's crazy from like how this all started to where we are now. So
yeah, it's made a lot of stars. I feel like Vikings has made a lot of stars that were just waiting to be thrust into stardom, but it's so funny.
Like I just never would have expected. Like I just could never have expected that Vikings would have had the kind of reach it did, and you always hope for that when you do anything, but like it's truly, I think, like I'm reading this book right now that I'm fascinated by called Ego is the Enemy. If you haven't read it, it's phenomenal. But it's a lot of it. They talk about like people's success in any industry and how the huge trap is comparison being the thief of joy, right? Or like looking at somebody that you've admired for so long and trying to recreate their career backwards so that you can follow in that in those same footsteps. And Vikings was kind of that first time when I realized, wow, like life is just going to throw a bunch of curveballs because the movies I thought were going to be huge for me weren't, and then the things I didn't know were. So for me, it's just like, just do what you love and leave the rest to the universe.
And also just slow down and enjoy the process. Everyone is chasing the answers and everything. It's about enjoying the process of the questions and being on set and being present and enjoying the moment and going, I got here and enjoying every day. It's so easy to just keep pursuing, and then you're constantly chasing something and not enjoying actually the process of
No, it's so true. I couldn't agree with that more.
It must have been an interesting experience for you, for the principal cast, because you're right. Like we were on the History Channel show and we're over in Ireland for 8 months, which was a beautiful isolation. But then it's like every year you guys were doing the Comic-Cons and we're kind of going out into the real world and experiencing the massive fame growing and growing and growing. And must have been like, oh, this is big.
Yeah. I'm really grateful that I had that experience on the Hunger Games before. And actually, one thing I should credit everyone on the cast, I give so much credit to everyone on the cast, is nobody ever let it affect who they were as a person. like everybody I think realized, and I also attribute a lot of that to Ireland. Like the cast is so incredible. I mean, the crew is so incredible in Ireland, and the people, and they take zero shit. So it's like you're like, no, your shit does stink here, and like we really don't care who you are or how big your show is. Like, we're a team, and I love that, and I feel like everybody on our show had that same mentality. It's like we all had the same size trailer, we all did the same. You know what I mean? Like, it was like there wasn't like a few people who were living this like or portraying this. You know, it was just felt like such a family.
Well, it's like the old saying, it's that the show that makes the actor, not the actor that makes the show. And when I say the show, it's like you said, it's Ireland. Everything that the show stands for, the crew, the script, the producers, the whole setup makes the actor. So then, and what was so special about Vikings is, you know, they spent so long looking for like Viggo Mortensen and Mads Mikkelsen, and they needed some stars to be to Ragnar and Rollo, and they eventually, you know, they needed somebody to kind of give it some kind of precedent because it's their first show, and they got Gabriel Byrne, and he was fantastic. And he just did 6 episodes and just launched us, but not a single person had really been a big star, and it proves that you don't need that. You need the show to just carry the actors and just let it be. And I think that's what shaped us all, is that there was no pressure to be a star.
I think now more than ever too, like the industry in general is just really being pressured to make great content. Like I do get that, you know, sometimes things will blow up and you're like, what? Like who's watching this? Like, I'm not, right? But then, you know what I mean? But then I think that for the most part, audiences are responding to just great content, wherever it's on or whatever channel it's on. It's like people just want to be a part of something fresh and new that's authentically itself. And Vikings was all of that. The one thing I would say that like is just such a, like I'm just so bitter about, and it's only because I firmly believe, I mean, is that, okay, well, what I'm so bitter about with the show is that the crew, like actors aside, but the crew especially never got like kind of publicly rewarded for their efforts. Because if you actually knew the budget that Vikings had at the beginning and the kind of show they were able to make it look like, it's mind blowing that they were able to do that, you know, from the hair to the wardrobe to everything. I mean, by the end of it, it was like $110 million a season or something crazy, right? But at the beginning it was quite small. And that's the one thing where I'm like, damn, like I really wish there was just a little bit more recognition for.
I think that happens a lot in our industry, don't you think? Like,
without a doubt.
When I stepped into the film and TV world, I mean, I was amazed at how hard everyone, because the actors, we show up early, but everyone's been there 2 hours before us. And then we do our thing and we get given coffee and we get given blankets and heaters and trailers. And even if it's a hard day, you're taken care of by a lot of people. And then we wrap and then people stay and load equipment and air out our costumes. And especially a show like Vikings, where, I mean, do you remember that big trailer machine they had that had to dry out your battle gear? It was like a dryer the size of a house, because all of your leather and your gear was wet and muddy and bloody every day, and they had to turn that around so it could be fresh and ready for you to put on.
And I've done shows now since as well, where you come in the morning and you've still got the same dirty jeans you wore yesterday, and that's fine. I don't, but it makes you appreciate that never happened in Vikings. You would kind of roll in the mud, and even if you just had to roll in the mud again tomorrow, you would still come in and it was like clean, warm, dry, and someone had to do that at the very arse end of the day to make sure it was there. And that's just going, you know, above and beyond. And
all of your
tattoos
hair
as well. Tattoos,
your
hair.
Tattoos, your hair.
Sometimes it take like 2 hours in the morning to put there was days with Rollo, especially old Rollo, where I'm getting my top off and you've got tattoos, you've got old wrinkles, you've got aging, and so it's the whole process takes ages, and someone has to come in and prep that before I even arrive, and then let alone, you know, having to work on me and other actors, you know, to get it all ready to start in the day, all before the sun comes up.
That's what's crazy. Like by the last season, I think my like call time, I was in at like 5 or 5:30 every morning, but Tom was there at 4, you know? So it's like, I will say this. I don't think that there will ever be a more uncomfortable show that I'll ever be a part of. Only because, you know what I mean? And uncomfortable in that, like, genuinely just like,
you're cold, dirty,
like,
tired.
Dirty, and just feeling gross and exhausted, and it's fucking freezing, and there's, you know, you're raining and you're hiding in your shield, and you're just like, oh my God. And like, we didn't stop for lunch. So if you have a day where you're in every scene, like, you're not eating, like, you're just going. And if some nice crew member decides to go get you something, like, that's great. Or that if you have like 15 minutes, you can run, like, shovel food in your mouth and get back. But like that, you know, and then of course, when you have like the furs on and then you're in the studio, it's like boiling hot.
The opposite.
You know, you're wiping ash out of your eyes.
Yeah.
And everything's lit by fire.
And you're eating set food, like old warm meat over and over.
I remember you, Alex, on the longboat when you were sitting there and you made the comment, you were like, because we've been stuck on that longboat and we were filming and there's no toilets. So you can't, I mean, if you really need to go to the toilet, then they have to send a boat for you to collect you from the longboat and take you all the way to land to find a porta potty, which you've got to take all of your costume off just to get on it. And then you're going to, and your mic, and you're going to slow down production probably by half an hour. And you remember you just saying, people take shit for granted. We take shit for granted.
Yeah.
And add to all of that, Clive, that you have to then inform the entire crew, who radios back to the land crew, who's like, Alex has to shit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be the most expensive shit you've ever taken in your life. That's about $50,000 later.
You better gold that shit right there and sell it. Oh man. Hey, this is a good segue to my next question. So I remember the first time that I got to go on the ships, which was like, you guys had been doing the ships for a full season at least. So I got to come on the ships.
I remember your first day on the ship as well.
Yeah, season 3.
I'll never forget it. Yeah.
I was out of my mind. Because I think I was the only Saxon who'd gotten to go on the ships. Like, I had this whole arc with the Vikings. I was like, fuck yeah, I was so excited. Yeah. And I have some really good videos that I need to release concurrent with this. But one of the videos that I have, which I think I've already posted, but I'm going to repost, is a young Alex Ludwig singing to me.
Oh,
you were singing to me something about girls in white wet t-shirts or something.
I think I was singing a song called "It's All About the South" by the Cadillac 3, and the reason I think that's what it was is because somebody posted it. I don't know if it was you, but I remember you're in the video, and then the band actually reposted it.
Did they really?
Yeah. What the song I was singing, which is hysterical.
White t-shirts about to be sprayed, something like that.
Oh no, that's "Water" by Brad Paisley. Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, yes, I remember that. That's so funny.
It was so sweet, but it's so, I mean, I thought it was adorable. I had no idea that you could even sing, let alone there's Canadian boy, now mind you, to a Texas girl busting out a country western song. So I was really impressed. But then, years later, you have a whole album you've released.
Yeah, well, the album is hopefully going to come out this year, but the EP's been released so far, and so that's kind of like a taste of what's to come, but it's not like the whole thing. But that is a crazy story how that all happened. I basically, when I finished Vikings, I had some time off and a little, money in my pocket, and I was like, this is your chance, man. Like, I don't know when you're ever going to be able to see this through. And, music has always been something that I like. When I was on Vikings, if I wasn't working for a scene or two, like, I'd be in my trailer, like, playing guitar, if we were in the studio or something, or writing songs. So this has been something I've been doing since I was like a kid. And I started hopping on planes, going to Nashville, kind of no direction whatsoever. And tried to write with everybody I could there. And the one thing I would tell everybody was like, look, like, this is just my life. This is what I love to do. This is by no means a vanity project. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, I love this and I want to see this through, because I don't want to be 80 years old and regret not having done this. And long story short, I'm hopping on a plane, and this band comes up to me, and they're big fans of Lone Survivor, and we start talking, and it turns out that they play and produce and write for Jason Aldean. And Jason's like one of the biggest country artists in the world. And I grew up on his music, and I love Jason. And he's since become a close friend. So like I end up sitting like right behind Tully, who's like Jason's like bass player for like the last 20 years. And we talked the entire plane ride. And when I wasn't shooting Vikings on the weekend, towards the end of the show, I was in a recording studio doing a demo. So I'd sent them the demo, and long story short, through that, I ended up getting a record deal. And it's just surreal. It's like so wild to even say that. And, you know, like anything, like it's going to take a very, very long, it's a long, long time. You know, it's not like nothing in any industry, I think, where you have to be creative comes quickly. It's just such a grind, but it's something that I love to do. So that's all that matters, you know.
I'm the one who brokered that deal for you after I heard you sing. I made a couple calls.
Your cut is actually coming in the mail. You're going to make $5.86.
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But you get your guitar out. You shared a house many seasons with Gustav Skarsgård, and you would you'd get your guitar out. Michael Hurst would come around sometimes, wouldn't he? He'd play the guitar as well.
When I left Vikings, I bought him this beautiful Martin guitar because we used to play like old Beatles songs together and stuff by the fire. Yeah, I miss that. I mean, he's obsessed with the Beatles, and so yeah, no, it was good. I mean, we always used to play, and I think like there was a few. I think Johnny Rhys Meyers played guitar at one point. There's a few others, but yeah.
What would you say Alex was? Because I revisited some of your scenes, especially because after I left the show and I didn't, you know, and you had this like whole old man thing going on that you wanted to grow in, and it was amazing. I rewatched your big speech where you were going hoarse and you were thumping your chest, and you were just like, you were so in it, and I was mesmerized. And it was such an exciting time for me because, especially if you have a friend who's an actor, it's really hard to then watch your friend who's acting and get lost in their acting. Because I know you, I know your role, but in that speech, I got lost in it, and you're fucking so good. And I remember like you saying that you got hoarse after shooting that. So what were some of the most challenging scenes that you can remember having to pull off?
That was one of them for sure. Like that. And I remember when we were doing that scene, that was like one of the first, I would say, I mean, the whole show is a gift to me, but season 5 was really special for me personally because I knew that Bjorn was in a big way following in his father's footsteps and kind of taking the mantle in a lot of ways. And I've been waiting for that for years, right? Like just that opportunity. Like
so did Alex, right? So did Alex. Totally. Travis had left the show. You know, there are a lot of rumors about, you know, is the show going to be as good without Ragnar Lothbrok? And it's going to be based on the sons. But we have this character. We have Bjorn Ironside that people know. The rest of the sons, they've grown up. They're going to get to know them. But you were the flagship of the show, and you pulled it off. Travis
was so great, and you know, Amy, you'd spoken about like mannerisms and stuff like that. Was, you know, that's something I worked on with Travis, and we had talked about stuff like that. And when Michael wrote that speech, that was a really big moment for me and the character. So I was super excited to get to be a part of that, because I feel like that is the moment where like Bjorn has finally become a leader. And I was so hoarse when I shot that, like I lost my entire voice. And after that, I lost my voice for like, because we shot that over 2 days. So like we almost didn't get through the next day. And then we saw it back when we were doing ADR. And I remember just saying, I can't ADR this. Like, just please don't make me ADR this, because it's so much more sad that he can barely talk. Mm-hmm. You know, that he's got like no voice. And the director agreed, and they were like, we're not going to ADR this. Like, we're going to leave it the way it is. And I'm so happy.
Good choice.
Yeah, because I was like, it's so much like more like, oh fuck, like he doesn't even have a voice. Like the guy is like just, he's lost it, you know. So that was one of the ones that definitely stood out to me as a really important scene. A lot of the scenes that also stand out, like Clive, like when you and I were, when I find out that there's a possibility that you could be my father. Like that was a great scene between you and I, especially because we hadn't got to work together for a while. another crazy scene that stands out with Clive is actually when we had that fist fight in the pouring rain.
Yes.
I was just about to say that, because those two scenes are the two juxtapositions of our characters. The one is you've got so much love for me that you're willing to try, you're basically knocking me out so the rest of those guys don't kill me, because I want to be killed. And you can see that even though it's violence, you can see so much love from Bjorn. And then that other scene with the father-son kind of encounter, there was pure rage. Yeah, there's rage and dishonor and it's like the role reversal. There were two great payoffs, I think, to have both of those scenes to play with our characters.
Yeah. And like Amy, it's funny, just to go back to like when you talked about the boat, Amy, like I'll never forget that moment, because I had the same jubilation when I first got on the boat, and you were the first person since me to be new to the boats.
To act like a dummy.
It's hysterical, because I was like, oh my God, I feel like a fucking veteran right now, because, and I haven't been, like, I've been on the show for like, I think like what, like a year or and a half maybe. But I remember you coming on just, it was like to a T, like, wow, like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. And in the back of my mind, I have already turned into a bitter old man, because I'm just like, just you fucking wait. Just wait until it's like, 10 hours later and it's pouring rain and we're hiding under our shields, like,
yeah, there'd be days where you would go, it's going to be hot, so I'm just going to wear my costume, it's going to be hot, and then you would find yourself freezing to death in a hailstorm. And then there would be days when they would offer you like a little wetsuit underneath your costume, and then it would be baking hot and you would be sweating to death with a wetsuit on, just wanting to pee in the wetsuit because you can't get off of the boat, and you think no one will smell the urine. It's like, it was just horrible. And the other thing is, like, all the directors hated the boat straight away, because they would be like, can we just line up the 4 boats for the shot? And you're like, they're boats. They're powered by wind. It's not as simple as like up a bit, left a bit, right a bit. It's like, it's going to take another 10 minutes to turn that boat around and kind of sail it all the way back around. And they didn't put motors in the boats for ages, did they?
I was like, who had this genius fucking idea? I was like, you can put a motor on the boat and
row.
And that was like years. There was like probably like 2 or 3 years of no motor, and then suddenly they were like, we're gonna put a little like dinghy motor on the back of these boats.
It's because we got a budget, like you said in the beginning. It was like the budget of Vikings is $500. See what you can do with it.
It was like, just get the actors to row all the way back again. They put the sail up, and then suddenly the boat would go so much quicker, and the director would be like, the boat's going too quickly, and you've got to take the sail down. But I want the sail in the shot. And you're like,
the filming is so funny to me, because sometimes I'm like, sometimes I feel like people are like penny wise and a pound foolish, because the amount of time you waste, like trying to get those boats lined up without a motor, like the motors would have paid for themselves, like, 5 times over.
Yes. The circling around. That's what I remember. Yeah. Circling around to get back in the line, circling around. Oh my God. So good. I was, as we've been kind of talking to their cast members, especially the, all of you guys who were involved in the fighting, my big shocker, I think, when I got to go on the boats was the Mercia battle that we got to, we shot. And I got to watch you guys like fly off the boat into the water in all your
the heads.
Yeah, yes. That was when that shot of Aragna with all the heads around it.
That's one of the coolest shots on the show, for sure.
So good. And but I really like watching you guys, my pals, my friends, and I knew you were all like fit, tough guys and stuff, but watching you fly off these boats and then fight for real. Like you were fighting like maniacs. It was so exciting. And I know that you've done a lot of, obviously you trained hardcore to be a Viking. I know you've done a couple of football roles, like American football, and then now you're playing a wrestler.
Like
that
such a the next level, right?
Yeah, like such a different way of training, right?
Yeah, like it's so hard though. Like nothing will come close to. I always say this: like nothing can come close to, like the toll that Vikings battles took on your body. Like not only like was it just purely like I mean like you're heaving after, but like. More often than not, you're leaving with a few cuts. Like that's for sure going to happen on your hands and whatever. Like nothing bad, but like it was just, and you're sandy and you're exhausted and there's mud and it's just like the weight of the armor and everything. It's like, I can't even imagine what that would have been like back in the day. And I remember I said this to a historian that was on our set one day. I'm like, what would it have been like? Like, and he's like this. And I remember just going, whoa. And I remember hearing the sounds of a battle taking place, just being like, what a cool thing to witness. Like, that is true. Like, you get to see, like, it would have been like that. Like, it would have been like, you know, at the beginning, like season 2, like with Jarl Borg, it's like 30 guys on every side just going at, like, that's what it would have. And it's like, wow, like, this is so fascinating to get to like feel like you're living in that time. But like Heels, like the wrestling show I'm doing now, like it's the impact is what is just like, I would say it's less exhausting because usually it will last for like a minute and a half and then you'd stop. Whereas like some of the Vikings battles felt like they would go just till you're old and gray. But, you know, but you're like, how have they not cut yet? But you know, trying to crawl off camera so they don't see you.
sometimes they couldn't stop us either. Remember that? They'd have to get a klaxon and be like, "Meh," people with their extras are still trying to kill each other.
But like on Heels, it's like the impact is what, like, you're landing on straight up wood. So it's like, that is, it is painful. But I'll never forget one of the meanest things I've ever done to a director to this day is, and I just couldn't help myself, and I'm such a shit for doing it. There was more extras than Braveheart on this day. And I was leading the charge, and they had like 100 horses. And it was actually incredible because you would run, the point was we would run up, clash with this team, and the horses would miss us. But it was our job to get out of the way. So it was like all these, like this intricate kind of choreography, and like they're all trying to figure it out. And I just remember just like I covered my mouth and I just yelled, "Action!"
You bastards.
And literally 100 horses and like that, like literally 1,000 people just collapsed.
Stop.
And I'm recording a thing, and they were like, "Who the fuck said that?" And I was just like dying. I was dying.
Ludwig.
I was like, I'm never doing that again. I was like, I didn't think people would fall for it, and it was like. It was unbelievable.
You are so ballsy, you little shit. You did that. Who was the director? Do you remember?
I want to say I think it was Kieran.
Oh, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you, I can imagine
see how that would have gone down.
Yeah.
I think I feel like people found out it was me eventually, and I mean, he offered me a role in his new film, so I think we're doing okay.
Oh, I am telling him, you know what, Kieran? You know that role you're giving Alex? He's the one who yelled action. Wow, you are something else. that's like another $50,000 moment.
But those, I mean, everyone, when we do those battles, they're raring to go. You know, you can see that happening so easily as well, because they are like, you know, chomping at the bit to go. So they're just waiting. They're like, you know, I mean, we've had like, I mean, a lot of the extras are really into it. They'll go for it 100%. And we've had sprained ankles, broken legs, people getting taken to hospital,
people being lit on fire. I mean, man, it's, and I would say that the crew is so as safe as you could be, but accidents do happen. And it's crazy that actually that more had ended up happening, just given how many just incredibly intricate battle sequences we had. But yeah,
I like that philosophy though that Franklin and Richard always had, which is like we rehearse and we rehearse and we rehearse. We take it really seriously, but on the day, just keep going. Just, you know, whatever happens. Just, yeah, and some of those moments when people are all in, balls to the wall, kind of really fighting with safety. Those moments sometimes are the moments that make the screen, and they weren't even choreographed. You know, something you learned standing up and you slip over in the mud, you can't call cut. You can't be like, oh, I've messed up my whole fight routine. I don't want it. You just go with it because you've not messed up anything. The messy, the better. You know, it becomes more real. Things start just slipping by your face. And as long as you're in control, those moments can be the bits that make an amazing fight as opposed to a good fight. And I think we were really lucky to have that mentality where like there was so many people just so committed that you just keep going and support.
Well, and we
other.
Also had, on with background artists, sometimes they're just there for a day, but we had background artists who were with us for 6 years or, the entire length of the show. So, they were our friends and recognizable. And I think they were as experienced as any of us were in front of the camera. They knew what to do.
They're so invaluable to the show, and they just gave so much. Like, I don't think I really fully appreciated just how much. Like Vikings is when and it's probably because I never got to work with that many extras like on a show. But like if you're doing a speech in front of 100 people, and your character is supposed to be loved in that moment, if they're not cheering and giving their all, you look like an idiot.
Yeah, it sucks.
And like, or if they're not laughing when you tell a joke, or if they're not angry when you're upset, like they are so pivotal to the characters, and it's the same. And it's the same with the battle sequences. I mean, like some of those extras had been on Vikings longer than I had. And they stayed the whole time. And they would go back and forth from Game of Thrones that was in Belfast and come back to Dublin. And it was like this whole community of people that were just incredible. Like, and, I remember Gavin, and, he was like one of those veteran extras. And finally, like we'd be so happy when they'd get little bit parts in the show and finally get to be featured a little bit. But man, those men and women were just truly incredible, and they stuck it out, and that's the thing is like, Vikings was not for divas. Like I'm the first one to be like, to say like actors, like, all right, like chill out, man. Like it's not the real thing. Like relax, including myself, right? Like you're okay. You got to go back to your trailer. Like you're fine.
Yeah.
Like in Vikings, you actually didn't get to go back to your trailer. Like we were actually shooting in the middle of nowhere. So like you were out in the woods. But what I think kept us all together was like the fact that if these extras are going through all this shit, like we can't be complaining at all. Like these guys are doing exactly what we're doing and putting their heart and soul into it. So, I just felt like there was just through the environment and everything that was happening. And I think the fact that everybody believed so much in the show and in what we were doing, like there was just this bond that I've yet to see on anything I've done before or after. It's like, it's an undeniable bond. I believe I would have had it on my new show, just that COVID has but not quite the same way, because you really felt like you went to war with these people.
Yeah, and no one dragged their feet. You're up in the elements all day. It's like, do you want to just complain? Because the day goes like so much longer. You just get on with it, pick it up, pick up the equipment, get up the hill, get filming. And everyone was there for each other. And there'd be days, wouldn't there? There'd always be days where it could be someone with a hangover, could be someone having a bad day, bad news. But we're always very good at propping each other up and just kind of like, chin up, shoulders down, march on through. It's like Ragnar's famous line, don't look back, not going that way. Just keep going, and that was kind of the whole kind of feel of the whole, 6-7 years of the filming.
And I also think that part of the bond too was that, and don't get me wrong, like it can be frustrating because there's times where you just want to go over what you have to do for your next scene, and like there's nowhere to do it because you're in the middle of nowhere. You're sitting on dirt, like just writing your notes down, trying to figure out. But like part of, I think what was so cool was that like we didn't have a place to go that wasn't with each other in the elements. So like we'd all be huddled up by the one heater that they may have, of shivering, like playing games together or just talking about the next scene, or like sitting, like those are the moments that I really miss about the show, because when it was a really big, once it was very clear that it was a successful show, it never felt like that,
Yeah, that's what I meant about like you guys going off and kind of experiencing the bigger and bigger fame and getting more and more recognized. But then you still had to come back and shoot in the rain in, horse shit and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, grounds you very quickly.
Totally.
I think it's fair to say that one of your most powerful scenes in Vikings is the ending, when you just will not die. Bjorn Ironside will just still keep rising from the grave, and just is that thorn in either side. Can you talk us through a little bit about your process of knowing that you're leaving the show, having to keep that a secret, getting prepared for that big scene, and how it actually felt on the day?
Yeah, so I knew I was leaving the show like a year and a half before that we even shot that scene. And I had talked to Steve Stark at MGM about this, that it was, first off, I want to preface saying that this will always be my favorite experience in my career, I think, in terms of just the family and the show and what just the whole, we'll never have anything quite like this. And it was really sad for me towards the end. It was very bittersweet because I had so much more to do with my character. So I was so grateful as an actor. But as a person, I had lost all my friends. Everybody graduated. Like I was stuck in school and all my friends were gone. And like we had this whole new wave of people who were amazing. Mm-hmm. And they were filled with this jubilance of being on this successful show. And it was so great to see. And they were all so talented and I love them. But I was at that stage now where it was only about the work. For me, I was like, I just want to make a great show. I just want to do right by this character and the fans. And then I want to go home. Like that is what I'm here to do. We were shooting, like when I say this to people, their jaws drop. But like, think about this. Like we were on a premium cable show that had 20 episodes. Like that's unheard of. Mm-hmm. Like the most you get is 13, and that's so rare. And they called it season A and season B, obviously. But
tricky.
Sneaky. Yeah. But we all know what it was. And I was away from home for like 11 months out of the year. And I'd go home for Christmas and I'd go back to shoot. And, I had been living with Gustav, who played Floki, for a long time. And we had this beautiful home in the countryside that was incredible, that we loved, but like he wasn't there anymore. So I was just like alone in the middle of nowhere, like, shit, man, like this is getting really, really tough. So I remember calling Steve, just like voicing like, where I was at and just seeing like, I want to do right by the show, but also like, I feel like I've done everything that I came here to do. And that we've kind of reached that point in the character where, unless we were going to shoot a whole season in Africa about Bjorn's experience in Africa, like I feel like we've reached that point of like, it would be overkill. Plus we have all these new, really talented actors who won't get a conclusion to their story if I don't leave. So I remember like I sat with Michael down and I had dinner with Michael and we talked about this, and Steve and Michael had come up with the idea that I would help bring the show into the last season and then leave in the first episode, which I thought was really cool because I didn't think anybody would see that coming. So that you wouldn't really know if Bjorn had died at the end of the season prior, and then we would take it to be, and then the last season would be filled with, wrapping up everyone's stories, not just mine. So Michael came up with this really cool idea that was very reminiscent of one of his favorite films called El Cid. And if you haven't seen it, it's starring Charlton Heston. It's based on, I believe, a true story. And it's a phenomenal film. Ironically, Charlton Heston is the grandfather of one of my best friends. Wow. And I remember calling my buddy and I was like, dude, you're not going to believe this. Like our showrunner just like referenced this scene that your grandfather had done. And in no way, it's so funny because in no way, shape or form is this tied to me being an actor. It's just by coincidence. He's one of my best friends. And it was just such a legendary way for that character to go out. And what I liked so much about it was Michael brilliantly rode the line of him being human and him still being true to his legend. You know what I mean? So it's like, he's not a god, but this kind of strength is godly. You know what I mean? Like and I like, you're right. He can't die. Like, even though he did in a weird way, you know what I'm saying? Like his legend will live on.
What he stood for is going to live on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was so grateful to Michael for that, because I felt like he just did so right by me and by the character and by the fans. And it was such an incredible way to lead the show. And what made it so special was that it was my last day on the show.
Was it really? I was going to ask you that.
We very rarely get to do that as actors, do we? To play out, that emotion. Yeah.
So that was fucking crazy. And there's some stuff that we did that they didn't end up putting in, and I talked to Steve about it, and I know why. And I love the way they did it, but they had hit me with the arrows, and I remember just like, I was like, fuck it, I'm off the show anyway. I'm just going to fall off the horse.
Action!
and I just like fell flat back, just right off the horse, and landed perfectly underneath his feet. And with the arrows out, just literally right on my back. And they didn't end up putting it in because I think that they wanted that air of legend or something to continue.
Yeah, it's loss of strength. If you're on the back of the horse still, it's like that full, it's like it's like the statues you see all over London and things, the kind of the general on his horse, and it's like,
But I don't even think I realized at the time how special that and how amazing it was that Michael wrote that, and how much it would resonate with some of the actual Vikings fans. And so many people talk about it now, and I just go, wow, like, he did so right by me. Like, that was just so, really, really special. And Michael's always found that really fine line of weaving historical accuracy with the show, so that even though everything isn't necessarily factual, he's found ways to kind of blend it so that you can see bits of the real stories intertwined, because there's no way you can tell a story about all these legendary characters in one show without doing that. So that was probably one of my favorite moments on the set too. And I was really sad to leave, but it was also, again, bittersweet, because at that point, a lot of the crew that I was with wasn't there anymore. A lot of the actors that I was with wasn't there anymore. And at the time, it just felt right. And it took about 2 years before I could really look back on that and go like, whoa, whoa. Like, that was incredible. The whole, wow, what an amazing experience for anybody.
It's a tough call to make, I think, as an actor, when you're doing an iconic role, and someone like Michael who's writing, and the producers who decide that it's time for a character to go, because you're going to face the fan sadness and fury, and the amount of fans who are like, why did so-and-so die? And they're so angry, but you think like, oh, because if you would have let them run and run and run, it would have petered out. That would have been so much worse. So sometimes you have to cut it, and it's painful, but then it's more powerful and it serves the story, like you said. I think that was generous of you to know that your time had come for the character, instead of going, I want to be on this show 10 more years.
Yeah, and truly, I wish I could say it was like to give other actors an opportunity, but the truth was, like, I really did just feel like my time was up, and I was like, I've just, it's run its course, and there's just more I want to do, and I'm, and it's that was the driving force, but I feel like it was the right move, and I agree with you completely, like, because like there was just nothing else. There was nothing else that had to be done.
Well, listen, brother, as we're talking about death and your character dying, we have a question we want to ask every one of our friends and colleagues and guests on Vikcast is, when Alex Ludwig, if he ever goes to Valhalla and Odin kind of goes, Valhalla's full, You know, we're not really letting anyone else in unless they've done something really, really Viking. What's the most Viking thing you've ever done, Alex? What would impress Odin?
Man, I mean, the most Viking thing I've ever done is I mean, that's consistent with the show. Is just you know, in northern Canada, cutting holes in the ice and going swimming. That's about as close to it as I can get. I definitely haven't killed anybody recently, so
I think it's hard for Alex Ludwig to shoot. Like you're always jumping out of a plane or wrestling a bear or
yeah, that's just normal for Alex. That's why I say that's not really Viking. That's just Alex. That's just Ludwig. It's just the Ludwig family. Just
you know what?
When
we totally when we interviewed Linus Roach, he made us laugh so hard because we asked him this question. He said the most Viking thing that he did was he went out and yelled at the neighbor because they were shooting guns and it pissed him off.
And he just apparently went, "That is not cool."
Oh my God. Oh man, I miss Linus.
Oh, right.
That's the sad thing about our, like, it's so amazing, but it's so sad about our industry. And I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's like, we really are traveling carnies, and we share these short, I mean, in Vikings is a different case, but most of the time we share a really, really close, intimate relationship with people for a very, very short period of time. And then it's like, see you when I see you. I love you, like I'll check in, but it's like, it's like you get high school and college again and again and again with different people. And it's an incredible life, but it's also just, it's sad too. Like I haven't talked to Linus and I loved Linus. Like I loved him.
He's an angel.
And it's also because they get us all from all over the world as well. For me personally, it's like you guys that I work with on Vikings are like, they're like family to me. And I love nearly all of you, nearly. But it's horrible. And you're like, oh, that one's in Sweden, that one's in America, that one's in Australia, that one's in England, that one's in Norway. And it's so tough to get us all together. And that's the sad part of it as well. It's, you know, when you say high school and college, it's like, you sometimes, unless you leave your town, you kind of grow up with people and you have them all around you all the time. And it's such a kind of gypsy lifestyle as an actor. It's so tough to kind of like, you know, once you make those bonds to kind of, you know, to feel that distance.
Jasper sent me a birthday video and he made me feel like such an asshole. He was like, I used to call him Jasper 3000. With the Finnish accent, he sounds like a robot, like that. And he sent me a message like, Alexander, I just want to wish you a happy birthday. And he was like, I tried calling and you did not pick up. It has been a long time since we have spoke. Happy birthday. And I was like, and I called him back and he didn't answer. And I was like, dude, stop. I feel like such a fucking asshole. I was like, we've just been away. Like, I love you. Like, I want to see you. It's COVID, man. Like, give me a break. But yeah. It's a beautiful life we live, but it's, you know, it's tough getting to say bye to, like, you know, it's like Amy, I don't get to see you very often, but like you always will have a close place in my heart. And, you know, when I'm in Texas, I'll see you.
Come to Texas, come play with my babies.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I would love that.
Well, I mean, Clive and I, you and I have been doing this, buddy, for what? Like we in the fall, I think we started recording this. So, but you're in LA and I was in London and now I've moved to Texas. We haven't seen each other except on Zoom.
Amy's been my therapist. It's like every time we do a Vikcast, a lot has changed in my life. And every time we do one, it's like before and after when we're not recording, I just sit there talking to Amy, just going, "This is what's happening in my life."
Oh, that's good though.
My big sister.
I'm everybody's mama.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm going to put you on the spot, and this is not going to be a problem for you because you are an actor and a performer. Can you give us an excerpt from one of your songs a cappella?
Oh my goodness. Oh shit. What's one I should sing?
What's one you could sing? I have a list of your songs here. Should I tell you which one you have to sing, or do you want to choose? got Love Today, Sunset Town, How It Rolls, Malibu Blue, Summer Crazy.
Sunset Town's like the only one you can really do a cappella to make it sound good.
Give us a verse. No, give us the chorus, the catchy chorus.
Okay, I'll give you part of it's I'll probably wind up in some sunset town, some little bar with a regular crowd, wearing some old jukebox out, yeah, shooting them down. That's what I got right now. Just have.
And anybody who hasn't done
Beautiful.
already, go on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you need to go, wherever you get your music, and go and download Alex's EP. It's incredible. And let's support our Ironside.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Before we wrap up this amazing episode of Vikcast, and what's coming out? You've got a movie coming out soon, or it's just come out. Is there anything we can
call
plug?
National Champions? It just came out. It's on Prime Video, I think, in like all the online stuff. The industry is crazy right now. It's like, it used to be like, yeah, in your local movie theater. Now you're like, just find it on whatever you watch your things on. Look up National Champions. Great film. I love it. So that just came out, and looking to go shoot a film in Spain, hopefully soon, and then starting the next season of Heels. So
great. Thank you so much for coming on Vikcast, Alex. That was an incredible interview, and everyone, I'm sure, at home has enjoyed listening to Bjorn Ironside.
I love you guys. I'm so grateful you guys are doing this. It's so cool.
You can get any extra content you want on our official Vikcast Instagram. Make sure to DM us if there's anything you want to hear from any guests or anything you want to see on Vikcast. And you can go to www.vikcast.com.
And thank you guys so much for continuing to follow our Vikcast official account and your DMs about questions. We were able to go in while we were recording and ask Alex specific questions that you wrote to us. So that's really cool, because then we find out what you want to know, and we're actually able to ask the real character in real time. So thanks for that. Keep it up. We love hearing from you guys.
This is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing. With Clive Standen and Amy Bailey. Follow the Vikings on Vikcast Official.
Shield wall!
Shield wall!
Shield wall!
Stay tuned for the next episode of Vikcast. We have a very, very special guest.